The systems at Tidal Gardens are a mix of custom glass aquariums and Rubbermaid stock tanks. Now originally, all the tanks were some combination of 300-gallon and 150-gallon stock tanks because they were by far the most cost-effective containers that were truly rugged. After all, anything that was built to be strong enough to get kicked by a horse or cow should hold up to the sort of beating that we dish out here. Over time though, we incorporated more glass aquariums because we found that neglect is the #1 killer of corals, and just being able to see the corals made a huge difference in their health. We were able to quickly spot issues and deal with them rather than noticing them much too late in the process to do anything meaningful. The stock tanks though never left the system. At the end of the day, they still provide a good amount of volume and can house some corals that we don't mind neglecting just a little bit. To our surprise, some of the neglect tanks really flourished. Besides regular feeding, we didn't go out of our way to clean them or anything. Yet they stayed extremely clean, and the fish and corals in them looked amazing despite being piled on top of one another. In particular, we noticed just how nice the substrate stayed in these systems. If you watched our other video on Substrate, it was probably a year ago, we cover some of the pros and cons of different types, and in some cases no substrate at all. In our glass systems now, we have no substrate and prefer that look. However, they do require diligent scraping and siphoning to remain clean looking. In contrast, the neglected tanks with rock and substrate needed practically no attention at all. This particular tank has not been disturbed in years. The microfauna living in the substrate, especially the worms, does a really good job of processing waste and churning the sand, and it stays a nice white color. If you want to put in a sand bed like this, here are a few practical tips. So first off, the sand selection. I'm partial to the whitest calcium carbonate based sand I can find. Most people don't realize this, but often when you go to a beach, the sand there isn't native. Lots of beaches are man-made, and the sand is silica based. Silica sand is a little more yellow in color, and it has some other undesirable properties compared to calcium carbonate. So when you walk on a beach with silica sand, it's really hot, and then the sand also sticks to you. Calcium carbonate, on the other hand, stays cool to the touch, and it brushes right off. In the tank, it has a more pleasing appearance, in my opinion, and can help buffer the water chemistry, much like a calcium reactor does. I've seen some tanks out there with black sand, and I know that some aquarists really like that aesthetic. I'm not in that camp, however. I was actually in the Big Island of Hawaii and saw some black sand beaches, and for whatever reason in my mind it kind of looked like an oil slick, or an oil spill I should say. So for whatever reason, that's always stuck in my head, and I've never liked that black substrate look. If you're looking for calcium carbonate based sand, a practical tip to help you determine what is and what is not calcium carbonate is to take a small vial of vinegar with you. If you put a little bit of the sand in the vial, it should start bubbling immediately as the acidity of the vinegar dissolves the calcium carbonate. It's like an acid-base reaction. Silica, on the other hand, does not react to vinegar, so it won't do anything. Next, let's talk about rinsing the sand. Sand, especially the really fine stuff, is very silty. If you put this in your tank as is with no pre-rinsing, the cloudiness of the water may take weeks, literally weeks, to clear. To avoid this, I recommend rinsing the substrate thoroughly. A common mistake people make when rinsing substrate is to try to rinse a large quantity all at once. Chances are, it's not going to be rinsed well enough and the tank will still stay murky for days. When I rinse the sand now, I only do it in very small quantities at a time, and just be patient with the process. Adding this pre-rinsed sand to a system clears up quickly as the finer particles have already been extracted. Waiting for cloudy water to clear is a huge pet peeve of mine, and this method keeps the cloudiness down to about an hour tops. Sure, it does take a little bit more effort up front, but it certainly doesn't take a week. Also, I'm adding this sand to systems with fish and coral already, so the sand has to clear up fast. As I mentioned before, the main reason I went with the sand substrate is low maintenance. We spend a great deal of time maintaining our bare bottom glass tanks, and practically speaking, we simply did not ever get to clean the Rubbermaid stock tanks when they had bare bottoms. It became an out of sight, out of mind scenario, and they just fell into neglect. This went on for years, as a matter of fact. It was only dumb luck that we had to move a bunch of sand down into the tubs, and luckily we did, because those tubs maintained a very clean appearance with zero effort on our part. Having said that, things could always be cleaner. We didn't add any sand sifting fish or invertebrates, but there's some good options out there. If I were to add anything, I would add one of these guys, a cucumber. They don't deplete the sand bed of life like the sand sifting starfish, and don't jump out of the tank like sand sifting gobies. For whatever reason, bottom dwelling fish are the first to launch out of the tank. In our wide open tanks, it's just a matter of time before they made it out. Some reef keepers I know also like to keep conchs. They seem to do a good job stirring the sand, but in my experience, they didn't do a whole lot. I liken them to basically taking an empty shell and burying it in the sand. Okay, that's all I have for the Substrate update. It's almost like a Jekyll and Hyde type design, these systems. Half the tanks are surgically clean bare bottoms, and the other half are completely neglected sandbed tubs. So far so good though. Anyhow, I hope you guys liked the video. I'll be doing my Q&A video for the 25k subscriber milestone. So if you guys have any last minute questions that you'd like me to answer, post them in the comments below. Take care, everyone.